Hi, everyone. Welcome to our successful job search using Career Coach. I'm going to share my screen right now, and let's get us started if I can find. I have lots of windows. Now let me see how I can get to this. Here it is. All right, and slideshow. Okay, are you seeing the successful job search?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All right, then we're going to move ahead here. So it's our successful job search using Career Coach. And if you've ever heard me talk before about really almost any aspect of job exploration, whenever I talk about Career Coach, I absolutely love this program. So you are going to hear it mentioned probably in every single meeting that we have, because there's some aspect of the job search that you can do in Career Coach. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for almost everything we want to do. So I found this. I don't think I used it in the last meeting, but it's 5 steps for a successful job search. And tonight we're going to talk about step 1 and step 3. Step 1 is how to figure out what you want, because very often we are, when I meet with students, the first thing they say is, I want a job or I want to change jobs, but they don't know for sure exactly where they want to be. So one of the wonderful tools about Career Coach is that you can take this assessment, and this assessment will help you to determine, based on how you answer these questions, and I know I showed this in the last meeting, based on how you answer these questions, it shows you where you, what jobs and career categories or clusters are most likely to be a match for you. Now, I'm going to go into Career Coach. So let me get back in here. That's the PowerPoint. Where is my Career Coach? I do not know how I keep doing this. All right, let me try this. And here it is. Okay, so are you seeing profile on Career Coach? So profile is right here. Okay, good. All right, so I've already logged in. Let me move this out of the way so I can see what I'm talking about. I've got so many little windows open here. So up here, if you haven't already done this, I really recommend that you go to the site, create a profile. I could click on this now, but because we're already in my profile and I've done it, all it's going to do is take me here. But if you look at what's listed in this profile, there's really, this is the part that came out of the assessment. We're going to talk about that. I'm sorry?
Oh, okay. I can hear you. And your
Can you
picture
hear me?
froze. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, phew. Okay. That hotspot better work. Let me know again. Sorry if that happens.
Okay.
So this is really this part right here about me. That's about all you're putting in the profile. So it's not like it takes any length of time. But if you don't set up a profile, you will not be able to save any of your results. So I think this might be, I don't know if this is the results from the last time I was on here or not, but after you take the survey, and remember I showed you that, let me go back up to here. So so I did the profile, which means look at this is now me logged in, and all of these things will be relative to me. And if they're matched to my assessment results, it will be based on my assessment results. So let me see what happens here. Okay, so this just takes me right to all the different assessment results. So after I was hoping it was going to show the assessment, but it didn't. But that's the one where they describe something like you would like to build things with your hands. And then you've got the 5 choices: strongly disagree, disagree, unsure, agree, strongly agree. And you want to stay away from unsure, because that does not give them any information to match you with any career. So definitely you want to stay away from unsure. If you really like something or really don't like something, then do the strongly agree, strongly disagree. So these are my top 3 traits. I'm investigative, I'm artistic, and I'm social. Okay, so they use those traits, and you can read more when you do yours about what the significance is. And then they match me with the top career choices. Now, I was really fortunate, and this works out really well for me to talk about how much I love this program, because this is what I'm doing, and it's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. I have been working in education and training. It's a 100% match to how I answered this assessment questions. Human services, which, so this is kind of funny, preparing individual for employment and career pathways. So that's a 76% match. Look at how big the difference is. I went from 100% match to education and training down to 76 was the next match. And then business management and administration. In my previous life before kids, I was in the business world. So it's kind of interesting that I've really done something in all 3 of these things, and these were the top 3. When you get into, so if I look at my 100% match, remember I talked about how, so this is the cluster or the large category, because when you registered with us, we asked you to choose which of the 16 clusters you are most interested in right now. So this is the cluster. And then within the cluster, these are the various pathways. So I have spent time teaching and training, but right now I'd be support services. And the previous job that I had was support services. So I've been kind of between this teaching and training and professional support services for the last 20 years. So I was pretty impressed that this is the way the results turned out. Now, what I don't know if this is going to show this or not. Let me look in support services. Okay, so notice how we start out in professional support services, and this job of curators is a 98% match. So that would be something that I should probably look at. I honestly never even thought about curators, but I could see where that kind of artistic, investigative type personality trait might be interested in something like this. The next match down is librarian at 96. We dropped down to 90. I want to see what the very lowest match for me is in this category. And sorry if I'm scrolling and making you dizzy. So even though education and training was a 100% match, there are still pathways that are only a 61% match. So the probability that I would like to be an audiovisual multimedia collection specialist are very slim, because I've got so many other things that I match at a higher rate. So if I'm going to be researching something, I'm probably going to spend my time researching the ones. And I'm really fortunate that there are so many in this category that are in the high 80s and 90%. So if I look at, I'm going to look at curators because I don't know that much about it. So this is my top career cluster and the top pathway in support services. So if I click on this, it tells me what the median salary, and you may median means kind of in the middle. It's not an average salary. It's kind of in the range of jobs. The middle salary is the 49,000. So a new worker, it tells you what a new worker is going to start at. It tells you what somebody highly experienced is going to start at. I mean, what they'll end up making. The annual job openings of 41 kind of gives me pause because that doesn't seem like a lot of openings to me. And we'll check out a few others just to see if they have higher numbers of annual openings. So if there are only 41 annual job openings in our area, this particular job title, if you will, is going to be very competitive because there aren't that many of these jobs. Okay. These are the programs. So when it says available programs, these are programs that Waubonsie has. So in art, we have an associate degree that's set up to be a transfer program if you wanted to go to a 4-year college from here, and these credits will transfer to that program. A fine arts degree, a geography degree, and a history degree. We don't have any short-term certificates relative to this, and we've talked about short-term certificates. Those are the ones that can be anywhere from 6 weeks to some of them take as long as 2 years, but they're a way for you to build credentials. And particularly in the, I'm more familiar with in the healthcare field, you know, we have certificate programs like phlebotomy, for example, which leads to possibly a nursing career. Well, to have, that's going to be a credential that can get you into the door of working in the medical field without having to go the 2 years to get your associate degree in nursing. And you could try and get a job as a phlebotomist in an area that you're interested in. Like if you want to work in a hospital, you could be a hospital phlebotomist and work in that environment so that you can see if that's what you like. If you'd rather be a phlebotomist or eventually work in a private practice, then you would try to get a phlebotomist job in a private practice. And there are more careers, short-term certificates that we call stackable, because as you gain more and more certificates, that's building your credentials, which makes you more marketable and valuable in your field, and more likely it opens up other doors for you to get other jobs within the field. Okay, so we'll go back to, okay, so this tells me, so I'm in the curator still. This will tell me more about what are the daily tasks. So these are the daily tasks that I could expect to possibly do, and look at the number of them. So when we talk about, and when we get to the point where we're talking about resumes, which may be the next meeting, these, we talk about, you want to match your resume to the tasks and skills that employers list in their job description. So if they had a job notice that they're hiring for this position, they may list maybe a half dozen of these. So let's say they're going to list the first 6. So, or let me show less here and see how many we get. Okay, this is perfect. So we've got the first 5. I'm going to want to mention, if I want this job, I'm going to mention planning and organizing. If I have had any experience in my past, either with a job or if I did volunteer work. And so many of us have volunteered for our children's schools or relative schools, or just volunteered at a museum or an art gallery or something like that. So any place that you have done planning and organizing of these types of things, you would want to mention that in the job, in your skills that you're going to highlight in your resume. Same thing with developing and maintaining an institution's registration, basic record keeping. Many jobs have basic record keeping systems that they use, computer databases that they use. So you might have this kind of experience in a different job. Those experiences would be transferable to another environment. So any of your past work history or volunteer experience that has any of these tasks in them, you're going to want to mention in that version of your resume that you're going to use to apply for this. And you're going to use, remember we talked about when we're listing our skills or the details of our job, we start them with action verbs. So these are plan and organize, develop and maintain, plan and conduct, provide information, negotiate and authorize. Start with action verbs. You don't want any kind of, back in the day, people would write sentences like I did this, or very vague, nothing that's quantifiable. We'll talk about that a little bit more in another session, but those are the types of verbs that you're looking to start when you your own detailed tasks of previous jobs that you've had. This is important when you are looking at jobs. So depending on what you're interested in doing, if you wanted this job, you would have to have minimally some college. So different people, like many of our students, have been educated in other countries, and they're with us either to study for within the United States to kind of get a feel about how we teach and learn here, or they want to improve and attain more English language ability. So you might have some college, a degree, a certificate that comes from a different country. It is still possible to apply for these jobs, even though you have not received those credentials here in the United States. And you can talk to your transition advisors, Marlena and Tom, about how you apply to get any credentials that you might have from another country validated here. So anyone who doesn't have some college should probably look elsewhere. When they are looking for, it shows us what skills they're looking for. Now, remember, we talk about hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills are the type that can be learned. So even if you've never done any kind of curation, studied art history, something about museums and how they're formed, how they run, even though you don't know that, that's something that can be studied and learned. The skills that are a little, it's not that they can't be learned, but many of these are, you're not going to learn them in necessarily a course. It's kind of something that you will develop on your own. But these are the ones, communications, even though this says research, that's because of the position. That's specifically because you're working in museums, research is important. However, almost every job that we will look at will have communication as the top soft skill that they're looking for. Team building is another one. I'm going to open this up a little bit to see. Okay, so when they talk about management, it could be self-management, it could be project management, it could be time management. All of those things are kind of, are you an organized person? Are you a self-starter? All of those kinds of things would be under that management thing that are a little difficult to learn in a class. You need to kind of think about those on your own and really think about yourself. Take a good look at what your soft strengths and soft skills are so that you can promote any of the ones that you are strong in and work on the ones that you think you might need some work on. And again, these are going to change. This was, I probably shouldn't have picked such a specific one, but this one is very much specific to working in a museum because of the research aspect, the presentations, innovation, interpersonal communications. I'm kind of surprised that that's not a little bit higher, but maybe within a museum setting, you're really working on your own a lot. Okay, so that's one of the things that you will see in every job that's in here is what are the hard skills and soft skills. Okay, then over here on the right, you can see that this, when they say jobs in our area, they're talking about a 50-mile radius around Chicago. So this is the area that these jobs would be in. And where we find these jobs is in the live job postings. So if I click on this, and this shows me the jobs that are in our area that they're currently hiring for. So I am going to look at Glen Ellen's not too far. Let's see if there's anything closer. And notice, you know, the Art Institute, we would expect that for a curator job. Field Museum, another one in Chicago, another field museum, colleges. Let me, that's in rec. Let me take this one in Glen Ellen and see. And this is a part-time position. I don't know if you would notice that I kind of clicked. So now we went from our career coach site and it linked us to, we're now in the Indeed program. So, and I highly recommend Indeed.com when you're doing a search. So what this did is it found jobs based on the curator title within 50 miles of Chicago. Here is the job. Let's see how much of a description. So it gives us the job description here. The kind of experience that they're looking for. They're looking for a bachelor degree or equivalent experience. So let's say you have an associate degree or some college, but you've had museum experience, then that would be the type of equivalent experience that they're talking about here. And then this is just additional information about where the position. Okay, so this position does require a background check and drug screening. It's from the College of DuPage. Here it says that it was listed 20 days ago. So if it's still, there is a possibility that after 20 days, they either haven't found the person that they think is right for the position, or they have found the person and they just had a contract for how long it was on the site. But notice what we can do. We can, by being on here, we'd have to create, if we want to save the job, you have to create an Indeed account, which I recommend you doing. But we can apply for this job right from here by clicking on that. And then, so here we are on that site now, and we are going to apply for the position. It's going to take us, so you have to complete all the forms. And are you sure you want to apply? So I'm going to stop here because I don't want to get into applying forms right now, but this is how far you could get. So if you went on here and you saw a job that you thought would be absolutely perfect, and let's say you saw that it has only been on this site for maybe a week or a few days, you would want to apply and get through this process, which means that instead of us clicking off this, which is what I'm going to do now to get back to talk more about Career Coach, we could actually apply right from here. Okay. Almost every place you apply, if you have not applied for a position recently, almost everywhere you set up some kind of way. You don't always have to finish the application right at that time, but you're going to set up some kind of an account with the company so that you can start it and then stop it and come back to it again. But when you're going to apply for a position online, you want to make sure that you have your resume ready to go to upload, and that you have an idea of how you want to write your cover letter, which last time we talked about the basics of a cover letter, or your branding statement, if you will. So that's why we want to prepare for all this, so that when you start this job search, you are ready to go to, as soon as you find a position, apply for the position. Any questions on this? And I went there, we're going to go back and see where we end up here. I haven't taken this link yet to go back, like, okay, so these were the jobs in the College of DuPage. So we went from our Career Coach to Indeed. Where are we now? I think we're still in there. All right, let me get out of here now and get back into. So here we are back at, I can't just keep going backwards here. Question?
Yeah, Valerie. So when we go to that job searching like that online, so are they have a like form that we have to fill, or how's that work?
Okay, so let me go back into. So let's say we're going to apply for this position. Oh, see where it says applicant login up here? So what's going to happen is when we go to this position, let's go up to apply. And we're going to say, okay, we want to apply. So the first thing they want us to do is set up an applicant login. So you're going to pick a username. You're going to choose your password. And at this point, we'd have to create the account.
Okay.
After you create it, then you're going to, when you want to come back to it, then you would log in instead. Okay. It also looks like if you have a LinkedIn, I'm not familiar with this career. Oh, this is for higher education. So that if you were looking in the school system for, say, college, post-secondary, anything after high school in education, this is a job site for that. But if you have a LinkedIn account, which is something we recommend, and we're going to talk about in another session, you could sign in with your LinkedIn account here. I am going to go ahead. Let's see what happens. This is going to be my username. And I'm going to create an account. And then this is what I have to do. I'd have to fill in all of this information. Remember that once you set up an account, make sure that you save anything that you're doing so that if you get into filling out the application, generally get down to usually at the bottom of every page, there's going to be a save button.
Okay.
So when I got to the bottom of this page, so here they're asking for my name, my last name. I'm not sure what. This must be like if I was an employee already at College of DuPage, I would have that employee ID. Because it doesn't have an asterisk, then I don't have to fill that out.
Okay.
For contact information, you have to give them an email address. You don't have to give them a phone. If, you know, almost everybody carries their cell phone with them and has access to their email. I don't know about you. I don't check my email even every day. Now, if I was looking for a job, I would, but I don't check it every day. So I would put my phone number and I'd use my cell number and I would make sure, I think we talked about this in the last session too, make sure that your outgoing voice message is something professional. Just like you can either say your name, like, this is Valerie. I'm sorry, I can't take your call right now, but if you leave your name and number, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, just something like that. You don't even have to say your name if you want, just, I'm sorry, I can't take your call. But have it be, because I have, especially with students, and I think I've told you the Little Princess story about the email. Generally, I don't talk about this unless I'm saying this to a young crowd, but you know, there are sometimes you have a hobby and you put that in your email address, or just make sure a first and last name, use a Gmail or a Yahoo account. You can set up a special account right now just for finding a job. If you already have one with your first initial and last name, then do first initial, middle initial, last name. Make it a little bit different, but that's not a bad idea to have a dedicated email account that hopefully all that's going to be on there is going to be work, career, job finding related material. Unfortunately, we are all getting all kinds of spam, no matter, I can't even believe how much junk comes to us, but hopefully it'll be less than the usual. So they're asking for, so we're going to make sure our outgoing message is professional. We're going to set up a professional named email. The username I already did on the front page, so it would have been just Vika Zubel again, whatever my password was, and then again, the password. Then what happens, I'm going to save it so that when I, if I don't, let's say I don't have time right now to finish, then when I log in, this part will already be in there. And I think what happens is it will take you to the next page to start where you left off. Okay?
Okay.
Are we good? Do we want to go further and take a look at this? No, it will be like, okay, it will be just so it's just going to be like a regular job application after this. But at some point, what is going to happen, and it might not be until the end of all the job application information, you will have an opportunity to upload your resume, upload a cover letter, and then also upload any other materials. So let's say whatever position that you're applying for requires a certificate, requires a license, or it's optional and you have that. You're going to want to upload that because that makes you a stronger candidate when they see that you have all of these things. So anything pertaining to the job, that's what you're going to want to upload. Okay, and I am here to, if you get into this process, please contact me, send me an email, ask me on Thursdays. If you come across something and you're not sure what to do, please let me know, because I'm happy to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now let's go back to, so here we are in Career Coach. Okay, so let's say this told me about the job. Let's see what's in wages. Okay, this shows, these are just percentiles, so it doesn't really, so only 90% of the people, the top 10% of the people make $97,000. So that's what that's all about. But let me just scroll down and make sure there's something I do want to show you. And again, I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy with the scrolling. Okay. So there are, so this is since March of 2018, there have been 93 jobs posted for curators. That's not a lot of jobs. So if I'm looking to change careers, or at least the job that I'm doing right now, I would be unlikely, particularly my background doesn't match this, but this wouldn't be something I would decide to study for because there aren't that many job openings. So these are, look at the postings and how erratic they are. Now, 2020, we almost can't go by whatever happened in here, because think about, most museums, anything that was public, everything was closed. So they weren't hiring people. I'm surprised that there's even positions available at all. But since we got into 2021, look at the drop. Okay. And we were at our high point in 2019. We are, what is that over there? The monthly postings were at 14, and now they're down to like 5 or 6. These are the companies who generally post these jobs. So, and this information is available on every single job that is in Career Coach. So these are the companies that are hiring for this position. So remember last time Marlena was showing us employment information about all the different careers that were out there and what companies were hiring in our area. So these are what companies are hiring in our area for this particular position. Then employment projection. So we took a big dive at the beginning of 2020, which is kind of interesting because that's before COVID, at the beginning of 2020. And we're kind of coming back. So it's not a declining, but it's not increasing. Like, we'd like to apply for something or study for something that's got a steep incline or increase in jobs. We definitely don't want to study for anything that looks like this. So for somebody who has this background, it looks like it's a steady projection. But if we're talking about how many curators are employed in the Chicago area, they're currently 366. In the year 2030, they only expect 21 more. So it's not a large growth. And then these are some of the job titles that you might find that jobs with curators would have. So there's a lot of information, and I really recommend that what you do, and then here's the similar careers. So let's say I wasn't that crazy about the way that sounded, curator sounded, so I'm going to look at some other things. So librarians is one, and here again, it's showing the matches. This is matched to me. If you don't do the assessments, there won't be any kind of a match. These jobs will just be there. Library science teachers. Remember, education and teaching was my #1 thing, so it's not surprising that these would be up in the mid-90s. Now, here's something that, I wouldn't think about if we're talking about curators in museums, that a related career might be a producer. It's not a high match for me, but, it sounds kind of interesting. So now, if I'm looking at this job and I see what the top entry level education is, you always want to do that so that you see, am I going to have to get a certificate? Well, it doesn't say high school or less. The minimal you'd have, the minimal you can have is a certificate. So you're going to have to do something beyond your high school equivalency. And that still is only 11%. So almost 90% of the people have either a bachelor degree or a master's or professional degree. So this is one where you have to be pretty educated. And do you want to go down this route? Do you want to spend your time and money on a job where you're going to need at least a master's degree, possibly, at least a bachelor's degree? Half of the people have a bachelor's degree. So we're talking about possibly 4 more years, unless you have one from another country and you've had your credentials validated. That is a way of getting around a lot of these things. Okay, so make sure that you look at this. These are just some other jobs that are similar. Here's interior designers. I don't know if this is exactly what you were looking for, Rawa, but
No.
No, okay, because yours was like the architectural type design, right? Not the,
Yes. The
Okay.
interface design.
okay. So those are similar careers. And then we did the live job postings. I showed you make sure that you look at the employment, because that's what shows you what the expectations of jobs in the future are. And if you want to see what else is similar, this is a good way to find other opportunities that you might not have known about. So and again, let me go back to careers. So again, these are the ones that match me. If I go into, I'm going to go into human services now. And this is showing, I think I have to go all the way. I don't know what personal services is, so I'm going to go in here. Okay, notice here on the side, I've got to move all my little windows. Got so many boxes open. So all of these personal services, you can, no matter what your job is, no matter which of these you're interested in, you can do a search based on the amount of education that you need. So most of these they're already filled in, but let's say at this point, so many of our students don't have a certificate or a bachelor's or associate degree from another country. So if I have a high school or less, then I'm not looking at the jobs that I'm not currently qualified for. And if I look at this tells me how many jobs in this that I would be qualified for. So of all the jobs that are here, there are 10 that I already am qualified for, and I don't have to get any more education at this point. If I had an associate degree, it would add 3 more. If I had a bachelor's degree, another 1. So you can see how by looking at and filtering, it can stop you from looking at something or spending time looking at a career that you still need more training for. However, if you are interested in it, all of this information is in there. So any questions on how we use the careers part? And again, because I filled out the profile, it takes me, it it shows me the careers. Notice that, and I think I opened it the last time without being logged in. Remember that agriculture was the first, and then arts was the second. So, or architecture, I think might be the second. Anyway, they don't come up alphabetically once you've done your profile. They come up in what's the highest match for you. So everything beyond these will be less than a 90% match for me. Doesn't mean I couldn't do one of those. And it also doesn't mean, one of the things I want to check that I'm not sure of, I'm going to go down to the one that's the very last for me. So apparently I don't want to manufacture anything. But let me go into here and see if any of, okay, so even though manufacturing was my very last thing, occupational health and safety specialist is still a 79% match. So it might be something, you know, you might want to just look through all of these clusters to see what are the highest matches for you when you are just exploring. Okay. And always look. So I'm thinking maybe this. I'm going to look at employment. Okay, look at the number of jobs for occupational health and safety specialists. There were 49 for curators. So we definitely, or 92 over the 2-year period. So obviously there are a lot more jobs here. And if we look at the projection of where we see this going, remember that from here in the 2020 being our pandemic year, manufacturing kind of held its own because there were so many things we still needed. But now that we're starting to come out of it, it is starting to grow again. So it is an area that you are going to, if you wanted to go into manufacturing or some part of it, it is a growth field, okay? And so you obviously, you want to look at the employment so that you can see what kind of postings there are. And let me look at, these are the companies. So, okay, so one of the things that we're going to talk about next is doing research. So if you're getting ready for an interview, you want to research. Well, this is how you can research, by looking at the companies who hire in the fields that you're interested in. And remember, we can do a web search, whether you use Google or Bing or whatever web browser you use. Everybody's got a search function. So if you just search on Amazon.com, you're going to find more than enough information about the company, because we always want to know about the company. And this is how you find out what companies in your area are hiring for the positions you're interested in. And these are the employment projections, which this is a higher incline than what we saw with curators. And then this is how they break down. So these are the job titles that, or the areas that have occupation and health safety specialists. This is, so most of them are in the environmental health and safety specialist. Okay.
Yeah.
So even in a cluster that doesn't match you, it doesn't look like, or it's the least match for you, you could find something that's a match. Sorry, did you have a question?
No, I think I'm good with this.
Okay, and this has the same thing with the live job postings as well. Okay, let me get back into the PowerPoint. This might be the last, I don't know if we're coming back to career coach or not, but let me get into. Okay, so am I in the wrong one? No. Okay, so when we're doing our job search, we want to make sure that we have a solid resume. Okay. So this particular one is an example of a chronological resume. And this is where the chronological part is down here in work experience. This is the only difference between a functional resume and a chronological resume is this part right down here, because you're giving the name of the employer and the month and the year, and you start with your most recent job and then work backwards. These are when you're giving your qualifications, these and your skills, these are the things that you want to match to. Remember the details of the job when we went into the curator job? There were those lists of tasks that you could expect to do on a daily basis. So anything that matches, and these are the ones that you want to start with those action verbs, plan, organize, design, all of those types of action verbs is how you want to start these. And you want to make sure that you are, you're matching them to the skills that they mention in the job description. Okay. Any questions about that? So what that means is if I'm going to apply for a curator, but I'm also going to apply for a teacher assistant job, the skills that I would use for each of those are going to be different. So that means I have to have two different versions of my resume. Career Coach can help you. You can save, you can tweak your versions. You can save, I think, up to 7 versions of your resume. So sometimes when you see that, when you're first setting up your profile and it says, limit of 7 or limit of 6, and you might think, why would I need that? Our employment process is so competitive that we want to make sure that we are tailoring our resume for every job that we're applying for. Now, you can have one in categories. So in other words, if I know I want to work in the education field, I'm going to have an education related resume. If I know that there's some kind of support services, or I find that curator job interesting, and let's say I have a history of having volunteered at a museum, then I'm going to have my volunteer experience be high in my skills and qualifications, but that's a totally different resume than what I would want to send for education. I would have both of those saved in Career Coach, or at least help me build them in Career Coach and then finalize the version maybe in Word or whatever else you use. Okay. Any questions on a resume?
Yeah, for I was working at school before, and then this is what I found. Some of the schools, they close, but I still have a contact person to give me a resume.
Perfect.
So my question is, what did you say? Is it need to be on a letter, or is it can by email?
Okay, so here's so there's a couple of places that previous job experience come to play.
Mm-hmm.
If we had kept going with that application, it would have listed, it would have had work experience, and there would be sections for however many places, let's say that you taught.
Yeah.
And you would list the times that you were there, the name of the school. And at some place, it's going to ask for your supervisor. I would put whoever your contact is for that
Mm-hmm.
school who can speak to what you did at that school, put
Mm-hmm.
them down as if they were the supervisor and that's who they can contact.
Okay.
However, I would also suggest that, especially because your experience is international, I would
Mhm.
suggest that you ask that person or any
Mhm.
people who can verify your experience to write a letter of reference that you can keep, just a general "to whom it may concern," or, "dear sir" or "madam," however they're comfortable with addressing the letter,
Mhm.
but identifying what they would say about you,
Mhm.
and how you did in the job. Put that in a letter that then you keep, and that could be one of your uploads
Okay.
as a letter of reference. One of the things we're going to talk about is creating either a career portfolio
Mhm.
or, in this digital world, perhaps a website. I need to look into that more because I want to do the same thing. I'm trying to find a way to reach students or have them reach the materials that I have without needing to meet with me. And so I have to figure out how to do that. That's going to be the same thing that you would do if you set up your own website that is
Mhm.
completely career based.
Okay. Website.
Okay. And we can talk about that later. And again, I still have to research that. That's like, I think I said this in the last, when I talked about, and I think I showed this resume in the last one. See up here, they've got the name, and
Mhm.
then they have the address as, 123 Any Street. And then they've got the city and the state. Well, best practices now say you don't have to put your address on there. So I'm telling students, take your address off there. Not because there's anything wrong with having your address on there, but that shows that you are current with what the trends are now in finding a job. Does that make
Okay.
sense? We want to present ourselves as professional as we can and also as current as we can. So if you look at this, so we take off the Any Street that's here. So we
Mhm.
just have Any Town. We'd have this, I recommend, be the mobile phone that has an
Okay.
appropriate business-like outgoing voicemail.
Mhm.
This is going to be your job seeking email address. And if you have a LinkedIn profile, which I recommend that you do, you put your LinkedIn profile here. And if we all make our personal website, we're going to enter that under here. And that works in two ways. First of all, any employer that sees that you have a personal website, it's a way for them, it shows that you are digitally capable. It's a way for you to show them what you want to show them about the work that you do. And if you have a website and somebody did a Google search on you, that website is going to come in on the search. So let's just say they've got, up to this point, you have filled out an application and you've uploaded your resume. Now, hopefully, if you're still going ahead, that means you've gotten past the applicant tracking system. Remember, we talked about that the last time. That's why we want all of these things in here to match the job details that are in the job description for what they're hiring. That's how you're going to get past the job applicant tracking system. And you're going to use the same action verbs that they use and the same keywords that they use so that you can get past that and be considered for the job. Okay, so if you get to the point where they are looking at your resume and they see that you have a website, again, and I think I mentioned this last time, most companies check social media. They're going to Google you. So if you have a Facebook, make sure, or any kind of social media account, Twitter, Instagram, make sure that you set your settings so that they're not public, unless there's, if everything on there is completely appropriate and business-like, which nobody has. I can control what I put out there, but I can't control what my friends put out there. And so if I allow an employer to see what anybody who knows me posts, that could be a problem. So that's why you want to keep what employers could see private. And I'm not that familiar with the privacy settings, but you want to look into that so that everything isn't public. Okay, so they're going to do that. And if they see that you have a LinkedIn account, which they have, if you have it and it's listed here, they're going to check your LinkedIn account. And LinkedIn is like the professional version of social media. And it's really a key thing. One of our future meetings will have Jerry come back and talk to us about LinkedIn and how he uses it. But it's a way of networking, particularly since we can't be out and about in the world. There aren't those kind of business meetings that you can just go to and meet people. We don't have that kind of networking. So now how are we going to do it? We do it through business networking, which is primarily LinkedIn. So here's how you use that. You decide that you found a school district that you're really interested in. Rawa, you found an engineering company or an architecture company that you're really interested in. You're going to go on LinkedIn and you're going to search for that company as well as anybody who has worked in that company. So the company site is where you can do that research about the company that you want to make sure that you've done. The individuals are people that you can reach out to and say, I'm interested in applying. So even though you're not connected and you're not friends, but if you reach out to them and send them a message that says, I'm really interested in your company, would you be willing to talk to me about it? Almost all people are very generous and they want to help other people looking for work. And that's a way to kind of get your foot in the door. Okay. You might also, you're going to find people who have worked there in the past, as well as people who currently work there. You want to maybe look for people who have the same job title as what you're searching for, or the same department or division that you would be working for. Okay. So that's how we're going to do our networking for business and reaching out and learning about things, is we're going to use LinkedIn for that. Okay. Any more questions about, and we're going to cover resumes a lot more. This isn't the last we're going to talk about it. So, but I'm trying to show you like all the pieces before we actually get into getting to the point of like what we have to do before we get to the point of being ready for that first interview. Okay, so if we have gotten to the phone interview tip to be able to use this, that means that we have already done our self-assessment on what we think, what careers match us and our personalities and our strengths. We have completed our resume. We have summarized our job history, because whenever like if we had gone further with the curator, and maybe I'm going to find one, at the next meeting, we're going to go through and get almost to the point of applying for a job so we can look at all the different pieces. I've not done that yet, and I think that would be a really good thing. So we'll do that next week. But you need to have all of your work history, where you worked, what your job duties were, and who the contact is going to be. You need to have that all summarized so that when you find that job that you want to apply for, you're going to probably have to fill out an online job application. You're not going to put that on your resume, but you are going to have to do some kind of job application. That's where those getting that work history in order that you had for your resume, you want to make sure you know who those contacts are and put down all the possible job duties that you had. Make sure that you list all of those. So you've got your resume, you've got your work history. Think about who your professional references will be. At some point, they are going to ask you for professional references. They can be people that you worked with, not necessarily a supervisor. They can be somebody you volunteered with. You know, some of us have been out of the workforce for a while, or our work history is in a different country. We haven't lived here this long, so we haven't made that many connections. Using references from another country are totally appropriate when you haven't been here that long. So we would expect that. However, if there are people who that you have connected with that in some way, shape, or form, either you volunteer somewhere you go to church, an organization, the school your children go to, and you've volunteered in their class. You know, there's community, you help at the food pantry. You know, there's a lot of things that we do and we don't even think about. You know, you're on the neighborhood watch team, something like that. You know, any of those kinds of things, those are the perfect people who see how you contribute to the community at large or the workplace at large. So you want to identify 3 or 4 of those people. Make sure you contact them. Ask them what the way they want to be contacted. So do they want you to list an email address? Do they mind using a phone number? You know, we really have stayed away from addresses and workplaces. It's pretty much is going to be either email or phone number. And then I would also, at that point, your resume should be finished. Send them a copy of your resume, as well as tell them what you're looking for. And your resume is going to have your branding statement on it. Remember, we talked about that kind of, this is who I am, this is what I'm looking for. So that elevator pitch, branding statement, that's going to be on there too. Share what you're looking for, and your resume so that they're current. You know, you might have someone who maybe you worked with 5 or 10 years ago, and for them to know what you've been doing, as well as all the things that you did when you worked together, just to remind them of how you connected in the past. But you want their permission. You don't want to give their name and contact information without getting their permission. Certainly, any teacher that you have developed a relationship with, any student that I have worked with personally, like I'd be happy to be a reference for either of you because I've had conversations with you. I wouldn't necessarily say I would want to be a reference for everybody in adult education because I don't know everybody. But certainly anyone who's made the effort to come here as well as reach out to me says a lot about that person. And that's what I would put in any reference that I would do for anyone who came to Job Club or contacts me. So make sure that you ask permission and let whoever it is know all of your professional references, let them know that you're looking. And tell them what you're looking for, and tell everybody you know what you're looking for, because you never know who might know about a job that you're looking for. So if you've gotten to the phone interview, that means you've done all these things that we've just talked about. They've seen your resume, you've done the online or in-person application. The phone interview has 2 purposes. One of them is to rule out potential people, because they're going to pull a stack of people that they're considering from their applicant pool. And they're going to look at through your resume. Obviously, it stood out if they're going to contact you to have a phone interview, because they're not going to phone interview everyone, but they're going to pick resumes, like maybe twice as many resumes as people they want to interview. So the phone interview rules out people, as well as say you were traveling at the time and you can't come in personally for an interview. That's another use for a phone interview, but primarily it's used to rule out people. So we need to take that phone interview even more seriously than our in-person interview. So these are some tips that were put together. Tonight, I will send you this PowerPoint, and I will send you the link to my YouTube channel, the link to these particular guys. And I'd had it in the chat, and then I signed off. No, it's not in here anymore. This is an interesting, I think they're called the interview guys. And after I get through this, I'll show you who they are, and I'll send you the link to how. I just found this. All I did was search for phone interview tips. This is the one that caught my eye. So taking it seriously, I think I explained to you why it's so important that you take it seriously. You want to focus and cut out all distractions. So remember, I gave you the example of the woman who was going to come and tell us about the interview process that she just went to, but realized she's babysitting for her grandchildren tonight. So it's not appropriate for you to hear all that background information. And so she declined to come tonight, but she will come another time. You want to, if you are in your home, you want to find a place that either a table or a desk that you can sit at. If you have a background that's in your, like both of you have very appropriate backgrounds right now, so they're fine. If you are, if you do a Zoom interview and or sit in front of someplace like that, so that you feel professional, like you're sitting at your work desk. But I just wanted to tell you that you both have good backgrounds. So wherever you are right now, if you have to do a Zoom, do it there. Cutting out the distractions. If you can't be alone in your house, if there are children, the television, other family members, you want to find a place away from that. And you also want to explain to your family members how important it is that you are not available. Do not interrupt you while you are on this phone interview. Okay, it's extremely, extremely important that you cut out any distractions, both for you as well as distractions for the employer who you're talking to. So the research that they're talking about next is you want to research the company. And we talked about how you can do that on LinkedIn as well as Google. Going to their website is a perfect place. If you find out what their mission statement is, that's sometimes if you can relate something to what their mission is, it shows that you made the effort to get to their website to find out about them, as well as you relate to it. So if you can say that, that's great. Research the position. So each of you finds a job that you want to apply for. Go back into Career Coach. Go into the resume section and I showed you this the last time, do as if you're adding work experience and put in the name of the job that you're looking for so that it shows you all the tasks. Even if they list a few, they may only list a few. If you can look at the ones that are in Career Coach, it might remind you of things that you've done in previous jobs. So you want to highlight those things. So find out what's important to them. They're going to put that in the job description, but also you can learn more about what tasks are involved in the jobs through Career Coach by adding it as if it was an additional work history, and it will populate the tasks area that's on the right with all of the different tasks that are normally assigned to this job. So that's the kind of research you want to do. The other thing is, okay, listen and don't dominate. So I am totally dominating our conversation tonight, okay? Because that's my role in this, we expect that. We would not expect me to go on and give a lot of examples if you're asking me a question. If you're the employer asking me a question, I want to be thoughtful in my answer. I want to be clear and concise. I want to make sure that anything I say matches what I have already read about that company or the job. Okay, you want to be tailoring your answers to that. You don't want to just kind of take over and let one thing lead to another and tell more than just answering their question. When it says prepare your own cheat sheet, what they're talking about is not only maybe write down a few of your skills that you think match them. What makes you the perfect person for their job? Always keep that in mind, because at some point in the whole interview process, I can guarantee you somebody's going to ask that question. And they might do it in the phone interview to kind of rule in or rule out people. So your cheat sheet can be all of the things about yourself that you're going to try and get into this interview. And it can also be the questions you want to make sure you ask. You have to have a list of questions ready so that when they say, do you have any other questions? A really good interviewer is going to tell you a lot about the job. So you may feel like, gosh, they've already answered all the questions I was going to ask. So have a couple of questions about maybe the company itself. Or two questions that I really like are, what would a typical day be like? Because they may not pose it that way. Or what are the qualities somebody would need to be successful in this position? Okay, that's going to tell you a lot about who they're looking for and what their expectations are. You can ask questions like, is this a new position? So then you know that they're kind of growing, and you will be growing in the position. They don't have expectations. If somebody has had it before and they're leaving, usually if they're replacing someone, they may explain why. They'll especially explain why if that person got a promotion, because then you know it's a place of growth. And they're telling you it's a place of growth. Okay, so you want to know, is it a new position? How they are going to evaluate it is another one, which means you're saying, I want to know what you expect from me because I want to give it to you. Okay, so those are all questions you can ask, which probably they will not give you that information. They're going to tell you a lot about the job, so you may not be able to use the typical day, but you definitely can use the, is this a new position? How are you going to evaluate it? What are the qualities you're looking for? Okay, so that's what's on your cheat sheet. The other thing is the next one, slow down and take your time. One of the things, I don't know if you have been in this experience, but a lot of times when you are being interviewed, you feel you don't want there to be any dead space. Like if you feel like if I don't answer right away, they're going to think something's wrong. Take your time, take a breath. Think in your mind, now what is the question? Make sure you're listening to what the question is, and don't just blurt something out that maybe isn't exactly the answer you want to give. Does that make sense? Okay, so make sure you're listening, and it's okay to take a breath. It's also okay to look at your cheat sheet. The first time I was changing jobs, and the first time I did a phone interview, I had probably 1.5 feet of my table that I was sitting at covered in Post-it notes, which were notes that if they ask me this question, this is what I'm going to tell them. And if they ask me, which that was overkill, but by preparing all of that, when they asked that question, I didn't have to find the Post-it because I'd already thought about it. So think about think about things. That's what the prepare and the research is just getting ready, and then take your time when you're giving an answer. The other thing my son said to me, which I thought was really interesting, he told me about a job interview that he had. And, they ask questions like, tell me about a time when. And he started a story, an example. And the way he started it, it was not going to end the way he wanted it to match the questions. So he just said, wait, I want to start over again, or could I start over again? And of course, the interviewer said yes. So it's okay to say that. Or the other thing that I use when I need to think about a question a little bit, I'll say, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought about that before. And then kind of pause. And then so that when when you get a chance to kind of think a little bit. So the be ready for common phone interviews. When we finish with this, I will show you where I got this particular information. This article, their 8 phone interview tips, had more links to it. It was like, this is the first time I've ever seen it, and I really, really liked it. So I'm going to share that with you also. So you'll be ready for the common phone interview questions because this article has a link that takes you to those. But we've talked about a lot of what the common ones are. Tell me about yourself. That's a huge one. And that doesn't mean about your personal life. Every question they ask you is not about your personal life. If they ask you to tell them about yourself, or they want any kind of personal information, if you're applying for a job that's in a different location than where you live, of course, they're going to ask you, are you willing to relocate? So that's something that's personal that you wouldn't necessarily talk about. But they're not going to ask you, like, how many children do you have? What neighborhood do you live in? What do you do for? They might ask you if you have any hobbies. That's one that I've heard before, because they feel like they find out like what kind of interests you have, because what they're looking for, just like what you should be looking for, is, are we a good fit? You might like the way the job sounds, but maybe this particular company you're not that crazy about, and at another job interview, you may find a company you really like. Likewise, they could say, you're a really qualified person, but we need somebody who likes to work as part of a team, and you seem to be somebody who wants to work alone. So I don't know that you're a good fit for us. Now, they may not have that discussion with you, but if you see teamwork listed as one of the qualifications or one of the descriptions, you're going to want to mention working on a team, liking, or that you like jobs. They may say, what kind of work environments do you like to work in? You could say, I do enjoy working on my own projects, but I like working with colleagues as well and having team projects. So that you bring up, I'm okay with working with other people, as I am okay to be on my own. Okay. So those are some of the common ones. Sending the thank you email is huge. Not everybody does that, and it's a reminder. What that says to them is, you're going to say thank you for your time. You're going to say you are very interested in the position, and you're going to use a version of that branding statement or that answer to, this is why I'm the perfect person for the job, in your thank you note. Okay. Then the one other thing, and you'll see this when I show you the article, is they called it the bonus number 9 phone interview tip, or interview tip in general, is the website. So let me see if I have anything else. I'm going to move ahead here. Okay, I always end our presentations with our advisor's contact information. And just as a reminder, our academic transition advisors are the ones where either if you're not sure where you want to go, if you know you need more training or you want to take more classes, they can help you, or you have credentials that you need to be validated, credentials from another country. Any questions about academics at all, these Tom and Marlena are who you go to. If you already know that you need assistance or want assistance with your job exploration, anything related to careers, then I'm the person that you would contact. If you contact me and it turns out that what you really want to do requires additional training, you would work with me for part of it. We would build your resume and everything that you would need to find a job. And then I would refer you back to work on the training, getting the training, connecting with academics to your academic advisor. And vice versa. If you're working with them and you say, this is what I want to do, there are very few of us who can afford to not work while they are getting extra education or extra training. So even if, let's say you decide you want a 2-year associate degree to be qualified for something, very few people cannot work for 2 years. So you would be working with them to set up the academic portion, and you could come to me to say, I need to find something. I have to work at least part-time. Okay. So that is I think that's our last. Then I want to show one more thing so that it is on the video. Let me find that article. Here it is. Okay, so they are, and I'm going to put this in the chat right now. I've got so many windows on top of each other. Okay, this is the phone interviews tip that I was telling you about. So they're called the interview guys. So if you just did the interviewguys.com, you'll probably get to their homepage, which I can click on that after I talk to you about this, but this is the one. So they start telling you about why is an interview important. I really recommend that you look at this, and look, they also have videos. There's an error code here because I've been on this too long, so it won't connect right now, but it has interview questions. It's got about the phone interviews versus in-person interviews. It's got stuff about resumes. They have a lot of different little videos on here. They have a cheat sheet, which, is that what this is? No, that's about the videos. That's not it. Okay. But click here to get it. So if you just go to that site, you'll get, so that's one of the first links that they give you. This was funny because they start out with, oh, phone interview. How easy can it get? I can just roll out of bed, wear my jammies. They won't even know. And it's all about the, be as serious as you would be if you were doing this in person. So I like their style. I like what they write. They have a lot of things. Here's where they're talking about eliminating, or if you're out of town. This is what you can expect in an interview. And here's the job interview questions that you've got a link to. So I will, so this link will not only be in the video. Is there a way to, I'll put it, let me see if I can put it. I'll add a slide to the PowerPoint that has both of these links on it, so that you have that tonight. And then, because some of the videos, the chat comes through and sometimes they don't. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But, here's the thing about cutting out distractions. This is a great article. So if nothing else, read that, because it really prepares you for all kinds of, whether you're interviewing in person or if you're doing it by phone. So any questions that you want to ask while we're still recording? Okay, I am going to stop the recording for now. I want to thank you so much for the questions that you did ask. That was awesome. And next time we're going to actually apply for a job until that final submit, because I don't want to get a job interview that I don't want. Okay, thanks for tonight. See you next week.
Thank you so much for your time.